best friends, not a care in the world.
I began drinking from a bottle that they had given me, and they tried to get me to drink out of this large cup. It's like a large shot glass, and I drank from it, and that's all I remember.
Night terrors, nightmares, flashbacks.
But what happened at a party changed their lives forever. They say they were raped.
As soon as the doctor told us what had happened, I just started to cry.
Completely in shock and completely devastated.
The charges dropped. The girls want justice. And now someone is finally listening.
It's double jeopardy. I would welcome someone from the outside coming in and taking a look at this case.
But now that sheriff thinks it's a good idea to reopen the case. Why the change? We're asking him. Raising America starts now. Thanks for joining us at the top of the hour, everyone. We're going to talk about those two teenage girls in Missouri that say they were raped and the charges were dropped because prosecutors say there just wasn't enough evidence and the victims didn't cooperate. Now, more than a year later, after being bullied out of town, the victims want justice, and the state's lieutenant governor is listening. He has called for the case to be reopened. With me, Mike Brooks, radio host Jennifer Kitt, attorney Kirby Clements, and also Christy with me. Also joining me now on the phone, that sheriff you just heard from, Sheriff Darren White from Nottoway County, Missouri. Sheriff, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Well, let me start, sir, by just playing something that you told CNN. Let's listen.
You believe a sexual assault occurred?
Absolutely. Within 4 hours of receiving the call, able to have people in jail with arrest warrants issued, and meaning that the charges had been filed. The only reason the prosecutor didn't move forward with this case is because he didn't have any victims. The victims chose not to be involved in this case. They chose to not cooperate, to not speak, to not do anything.
So, Sheriff, the family actually told us they did cooperate. Everything was in that police report. In addition, the boys said they had sex with the girls. So what more did you need?
Well, I didn't need anything more. We conducted our investigation. We sent all that to the prosecuting attorney, and charges were filed. So, you know, our part of that was handled and handled correctly.
But why? But why, Sheriff? Sheriff, this is Mike Brooks. Why did you not get together with the prosecutor and say, "Hey, look, here we have this case"? I mean, they called the police. The victims called the police. So it's not like there was no complainant. You had a complainant. You had the evidence. You presented it to the prosecutor. Why did it not go forward?
Because the victims, when called in to give depositions, invoked their Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate themselves and refused to speak, and indicated to the not only the defense attorney but to the prosecution that they would not testify.
What were they invoking their right? I mean, what crime did they think they had committed? Underage possession of alcohol or something of that nature?
You know what? You're asking the wrong guy. I cannot get inside the head of any of the Colemans or any of the people on that side of it. You would have to ask them. And I don't understand why someone that's a victim of a crime would invoke their Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination. I'm absolutely stymied by that.
Well, couldn't the prosecutor have given them immunity from any crime anyway and nullified that altogether?
The prosecutor was not looking at charging them with any crime. The prosecutor was looking at them as being victims of a crime.
You know, we started talking this afternoon about this, Sheriff, and we couldn't help but bring up the point that one of those boys has to be connected to somebody because this just reeks of politics. And then we discovered that the boy involved in this case is the grandson of former state legislator and highway patrolman Rex Barnett. So were there some favors called in here, Sheriff?
Absolutely not. And Rex Barnett is a man that I've known for over 30 years, and I know him to be nothing but moral and honorable, and he would never do anything like that.
So,
and it really has nothing more to do with anything other than the victims refused to testify.
Okay, but you know what? The victims are talking now, Sheriff. I mean, they've been talking publicly, so I'm wondering, now that they're talking, we don't know what happened before that, but Are you going to press charges? I mean, you could move forward with charges
see,
yourself, right?
Here's where you're confused, and I know that some of the people in the room there are attorneys, and maybe they can explain this to you. Law enforcement does not file any charges against anyone. Prosecutors do that. Law enforcement takes calls for service. We gather information, we do reports, and we send that information on. The prosecuting attorney is the only one that can file charges. So as far as reopening the case, that would all be on the prosecution. All of our information, all of our reports, all of that stuff, it's still there.
So, Sheriff, what about the fact that these victims and their families say they were bullied out of town? I mean, the home of one of these girls was burnt to a crisp. I mean, it's not just an issue of these two boys and the charges that were dropped when they came forward saying they were raped, but their home was scorched, burned down. They were bullied out of town.
Well, they say that they were bullied out of town. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. They certainly never made any reports to any law enforcement. And there's several avenues of law enforcement, if they did not want to report it to the sheriff's office, that they could have taken to say, hey, we're being bullied, we're being threatened, whatever, and none of that was ever done. So it's very easy, almost 2 years after the fact, to say that you were bullied, but what do you have to support that claim?
Well, so now they had a confession from you, right?
They had a confession from me about...
From the boy, right?
Well, we have audio and videotape interviews with everyone that was involved in that incident, yes.
Okay.
But in this country that we live in, our laws say that the accused have the right to face their accuser, and the defense has the right to depose and to question any witness, any accuser that they need to speak with so that they can build their defense. And these people refuse to cooperate with that.
If they came to you right now, Sheriff, and said, we want to pursue this case again, would you, again, reopen the case, get additional statements if you need to, and present that to the prosecutor, to the prosecutor and prosecuting attorneys to see if they would go forward with it? Okay, again, you guys are confused. I do not reopen cases. The prosecutor is the only one that can do that. And as I said last night on CNN, and you played that short clip earlier, if somebody from the outside would like to come in and look at this case, I would welcome that, because it would show that things were done correctly and that, you know, these allegations are just absolutely outrageous. I would welcome someone to come in and take another look at this case.
Well, the Lieutenant Governor has called for the case to be reopened. We will definitely follow that. Sheriff, we appreciate you calling.